Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new episode of the interview line at Unakriti. At Unakriti, we help you tap your avatars. And we truly believe that all of us have multiple potentials. And if we give them right direction, we can create amazing monetizing opportunities for us. Today on the interview line, we have someone who has had a long career in HR. And then the turn of events in life made her explore amazing potentials in her. And there she went on to start amazing ventures of hers. I'm not going to let the beans come out, and I will let Ekta talk about all the journeys that she's had and currently who is the creator at Studio Bodhi. Ekta, thank you for joining us from South Korea.
Thank you, Navita and Unakriti, for having me in line. And I'm looking forward to talking to you today.
So we are delighted to have you here, and we know that you were in HR for a very long time, and then things took a different shape altogether when you moved to different countries. So tell us, how did your quest to explore various potentials that you have start for you? What was that starting point, and how did that journey take on?
Okay, thank you so much, Navita. Let me just first begin by saying that as ever since I can recall, after having finished my MBA in HR, I've always wanted to do an entrepreneurial venture. It was always there on my bucket list. But obviously, it was one of those bucket lists that you create, but then you aren't sure whether you can actually ever achieve it. Um, I moved to Hong Kong in 2005. And when I was in Hong Kong, I was there for around 7.5 to 8 years. And during this duration, I was also working in one of the largest insurance MNCs. And it was a dream job, a dream role. It's the kind of role that, when you are just out of MBA, you imagine you would be doing in probably 8 to 10 years of your career. And I was lucky enough to have got this opportunity within the first 5 or 6 years. And it was a regional role, and I was doing really well. And while everything seemed right on paper, there was something missing. And this is a phase I think we all go through at some point of time in our lives, especially in our careers, where you feel that everything seems right and yet something's missing. And I started going through that phase when I was pretty much at the top of my career there. And there was this feeling of lack of job satisfaction. I would have to drag myself to work every day, and I was extremely confused on what I needed to do, whether I needed a change of career or whether I needed a change of job. Now, at that time came the second, pretty much at that time came the second important event of pretty much most women's lives, which is becoming a mother. And with the very typical guilt pangs that probably every working mother goes through, I started going through. So when my daughter was almost a year and a half, I remember still vividly that for almost 6 months when I started work after she was born, it would be a literally, a very, very torturous event every morning to walk out of home and, see her crying and, and that first few steps that you take out of the house was extremely painful. And I think somewhere around that time, the dissonance in terms of the job and what I wanted to do started increasing. Now, at the same time, I just got lucky because one of my batchmates from MBA, also in a similar situation, happened to reconnect, and we started talking, and we had similar ideas, and both of us were keen on doing, an entrepreneurial venture. And so one thing led to another, and before we knew from, when we started talking to a span of 6 to 8 months, we had almost created a complete idea of what we wanted to do and what we should be doing. And that's pretty much the amount of time it took us to really, for me as well, to pretty much make up my mind that, yeah, this is probably the next right thing for me to do. Now, you have to understand it was a very, very, very big decision, and probably one of the biggest decisions I've taken, simply because moving from a double income to a single income, especially with a kid there, and leaving at the top of your career was a big challenge. But thanks to the support of my family and to, sometimes just closing your eyes and saying that if you don't do it now, you'll probably never do it. And if you don't take that risk, you'll definitely not succeed. So at that point of time, I just took that big calculated risk. It was a calculated risk. I knew that if this didn't go well, I could always go back to work. But I did quit my job, and at that point of time, with my partner, I started what we called Made for Tots, which was a business where we started selling personalized kids products. So it was not selling products as much as it was selling an idea or a concept of personalization, which was pretty new and less known outside India at that point of time. So that's how Made for Tots was delivered. We became two mothers of a new baby, which was Made for Tots.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's fantastic. That the way you put it, it was very interesting. When you were at the peak of your career in HR
Yes.
space, that's when the thoughts started to happen. Whether you are in the right place, everything was going right, but something was missing, and that's where possibly the quest starts for all of us in
Yes.
some way or the
Yes.
other. And we start to figure out what next for us. Am I doing something wrong, or do I need to do something right? There are lots of questions that come in us, and I think it was quite fortunate that you found a partner who was with the same
Yes.
ideas, and you could come out with something very unique. And you said you were coming out with an idea, not as much as a product. That's fantastic to
Yes.
hear, that a new thing was born with two heads coming together. And how about monetization part, Ekta? Because, like you said, moving into a new space, which is quite risky, how do you see when you get into a new venture, the monetization? How long does it take to establish your brand and to really set your footing over there? What's your experience from Made for Tots?
So Made for Tots has been a immense learning. We started from an HR professional with 10 years of experience in India and internationally. And from there, we created an online store for kids products where we were selling right from towels to, blankets to, all kinds of kids products, pouches and bags. And so the learning curve we had in the first so we did a huge amount of research in the first 6 to 8 months, which I believe is extremely important for anybody who's looking to start a venture, and especially a venture where they want to go into monetizing pretty quickly. So your research is important, and your understanding your market, understanding your competitors, understanding what you're really selling. So we could have positioned ourselves as a product, but we decided or chose to sell ourselves or to position ourselves more as a concept rather than just a product. And I think that paid off for us pretty well. And it took us, I mean, again, it depends on the business you're looking into. We were a pretty much made to order business model where we never really stocked much. So our losses or our risks were minimal. Of course, there is an initial investment, but our running costs from a pretty much stocking perspective was minimal. And which is why we deliberately chose a model where we did not have a lot of financial blockage. And I think within the first year and a half, or even less than that, we had begun to monetize. And currently, the project is on a sabbatical hold, I'd say, simply because I relocated from Singapore to Korea 3 years back. And due to the import restrictions and due to the legal restrictions here, we were not able to continue the business in South Korea. But the business still stays, and it's a model where I can pick it up and start running it back again at any point of time that I want, because I don't have any stocks. And we, like I said, monetized it within probably within a year and a half. And it was a great experience. And when you first get your first profit, it's a big sense of achievement. It doesn't matter how much you're making. It's about the fact that you've sold something which is actually liked by people, appreciated, and you're actually making some money out of it. So especially all the women out there who aren't sure whether they can do it, they can do it. Everybody can do it. I've done it. I've done it 2 times over. So I'm pretty sure most women there, most people there, I wouldn't say just women, can do it as well.
Yeah, so I think that's a realistic perspective that you have shared, because a lot of time when people start a new venture, they start to
Yeah.
expect returns very early on. But you said it took
No.
about 1 year, 1.5 years, and now Made for Tots is
Yes.
at sabbatical. So what's keeping you busy after the relocation? What's happening? We've heard the word Studio Bodhi. What's that about? Tell us more about your current venture. And also, when you're sharing about Studio Bodhi, tell us if your previous experiences, whether you as an HR professional or having already been into an entrepreneurial journey, are they coming handy for you at this point in time?
Oh, absolutely. So before I talk about Studio Bodhi and my current occupation, I just want to just share very clearly that after the two ventures, I strongly believe that no experience in life is good or bad. An experience is an experience. And if it's not leading to direct success, technically what we call a success, then it's definitely a stepping stone towards success. It's either of the two. It's either leading you directly, it's one step before your success, or it's a few steps before your success, but it's definitely leading you to the path of learning and success. And for us, when I moved to Korea, I think 3.5 years back, um, Korea was a big change from Singapore. Singapore was a relatively easy market. We were operating our earlier venture from Hong Kong and Singapore. Language restrictions, legal restrictions, import and export restrictions, business registration restrictions. It's a different country, a different ball game, a whole different setup. And we had to put a hold to Made for Tots for these reasons. And when I came here, it always takes, and this is for anybody who has a nomadic life like me. A lot of people are moving out of India today. You need to give yourself 6 months to 8 months in any new place to settle down, to restart your life. And I've done this 3 or 4 times over. So I knew that I would need 6 to 8 months to kind of settle down, settle my kids down in a new place. But after that was done, I reached a space where I started feeling the itch again on what do I do with myself. I have time in my hands, and how can I engage myself constructively? And again, like I said, opportunity comes to you every now and then. It's just a matter of being able to be smart enough to recognize it and grab it as it comes. I just got lucky because when I moved here, in the first 6 to 8 months, I've always been into art. I've always loved art. As a kid, I've always been passionate about art. But because life took over in the last 25 years, life took over life. I wasn't really able to follow my passion. And it was pretty much done, dusted, shoved under the carpet. When I came to Korea and I didn't really have much other things to do, I decided to pick that back up. And I had randomly put a post in one of the Facebook groups of expat women, sharing one of my artworks for some query. Now, that post really created a lot of uh, curiosity amongst a lot of people here who asked me about more than sharing the information. They asked me about whether I would be interested in teaching what I had made and whether I would be interested in selling. And that kind of surprised me because I had never thought of taking art as a commercial venture because somewhere I was never, I'm not a trained artist. I'm a self-taught artist. So I didn't have the confidence in myself that I could do something like this. I never, after having done MBA and all of that, thought I could be a teacher. But then, like they say never. So when this came up, I started just, a couple of my friends asked me to just help them with some art. I did that, just for free. And then, word of mouth spread and people started contacting me to teach them what I had made. And I decided to just go ahead and do it. And then my husband has a big role to play because he suggested and he encouraged me that, if there are 2 or 3 people who are showed an interest, there could be 200, 300 who could show the interest as well. So if you want to do this, go ahead and do it in a professional way. So that's when we started thinking and we created this brand called Studio Bodhi, which actually comes from obviously the Bodhi tree, which was a place of inspiration, learning, enlightenment for obviously we know Gautam Buddha. And the idea was to behind Studio Bodhi was to really create some bit of enlightenment about Indian art and Indian folk art, especially amongst all the people out here, outside India. And Navita, you would be amazed. I was amazed and I was surprised at the amount of appreciation, the amount of love, and the amount of positive feedback people have shown towards Indian art. And we are immensely rich in terms of our culture and art. And it's so unfortunate that, very few people outside really know about what it's all about. And so when I started doing these workshops, I would actually start my workshops by sharing about not just what the process of the art is going to be, but sharing with them a history about Indian art, giving them printouts about different types of Indian art, folk arts, and they would actually sit and read with a lot of interest. And so that's where it's primarily started off. And then, of course, one workshops led to two, two led to five, and people started buying my products. So, after 2.5 years, now I regularly sell my products on my Facebook and Instagram pages. And I also do markets, as and when there's an opportunity. And I do regular workshops for adults and as well as kids. So this has just grown organically. Like I said, there was an opportunity. I took the opportunity, and I made the most of it. I did not restrain myself. There were moments of self-doubt, but I just closed my eyes and said, well, if there's an opportunity coming my way, I will give it a shot. Whether I am 100% successful or not, I will give it a shot. And Made for Tots experience has a big role to play in this. I think if I hadn't done Made for Tots and done the whole experience of going through the grind, understanding the business, failing, succeeding, I wouldn't have had the confidence to even give this a shot. But because I had done Made for Tots, I kind of understood what it takes to start a small business. Um, it it helped me get over my initial doubts and fears about myself.
So, Ekta, from your experience, it's very, very visible that when one venture is something that you've put on a sabbatical, that did not stop you from entering into another completely unknown space. Yes, there are certain things that we know about ourselves that we like being there or we would like to explore it. But you gave it a whole new light through Studio Bodhi and went a step ahead of not only exploring it at the personal level, but how the opportunities then started to open up for you to do the workshops and how you integrated education along with the workshops that were going on. This is something that doesn't come easy, and the whole journey that you have just shared itself gives a view of you know reconstructing at various phases of the exploration that you have been through. So if you had to recollect and put like top two lessons or tips that come to your mind you can share with someone who has to reconstruct them at different phases because of either personal choices or life circumstances, what would those be? So they can find out how they can leverage their passions and convert them into something that would make money for them.
Sure. I mean, look, everybody is a different individual. Their learnings, their experiences, their way of interpreting their experiences is also different. I can share my own journey and I can share my learnings from my experience. So, for me, the first thing which has been the most important was that, like I said earlier, for me, Made for Tots, I believe, has been a very, very important stepping stone towards creating Studio Bodhi. One of the primary things that happened to me during Made for Tots is the self realization that other than the commercial part and taking care of the commercial aspects of the business, I was also involved along with my partner in designing some of the products. The creative parts. And during the 4.5 years that we were doing Meet for Tots, I realized that that's one aspect I really enjoyed, and that was one when the realization came in that if I ever want to do something else, it would probably have to involve some creative aspect in it. And which is why when Studio Bodhi started, the idea of Studio Bodhi started coming alive, it got me extremely excited because I felt an inherent confidence because I knew that because it has to do with creative aspects, I would enjoy working on it. Success, failure is a second aspect. But the fact that I wouldn't feel a drudgery to get up every morning and do my workshops, I was 100% sure of that. So I think that itself is a very good start. And to me, the learning has been, like I said, that there is no such thing as a bad experience. An experience is an experience. All experiences, all instances or events in our life are stepping stones towards success. And everybody's definition of success may vary. For some people, commercialization is a big success. For some people, satisfaction is a big success. For some people, creation is a big success. So, whatever your definition of success is, I think that's what every individual has to define for themselves. But for me, I know that today Studio Bodhi is a therapeutic venture for me. When I talk about it and when I write about it, I always tell people, if you're looking for some art therapy, come to us, because we create a good environment. We put some nice music, we give you some nice Indian chai, and we then, do some very peaceful art. Everybody chooses their own space, their own, you know, pace of working, their own designs, their own colors, and it just flows in a beautiful flow. So that's the first. The second is, which I have been really thinking about, in the last 3 years, is that our ability as humans to surprise ourselves is immense. Just when we think that this is something we can't do, we can surprise ourselves. From an HR professional to somebody who needed to understand what a cotton and a difference between a cotton and a nylon fabric is, to understanding what is the difference between a simple ribbon and a gross grain ribbon, because that's not what our products were about, or what is the viscosity or density of a towel, to somebody who's talking about a primer and acrylic paint and quality of paints and quality of brushes. I've had learnings 3 times over. I think my first was a formal academic learning, where I got a certificate. And after that, it's been hands on the job learning for me, but it's still learning, So I think these two have been really, really important lessons. And I'm sure that, I'm sure and I hope to keep surprising myself going further too.
Yeah, so I think that what stands out from me from the lessons that could be picked up from your specific journeys, one is when you are getting into something, check the inner thermometer. What is
Yes,
exciting you? In your space, it was creativity, and anytime you are getting into a creative environment, you know that is something that will let your energies flow. And
yes,
second is, do not underestimate your own abilities, because there is no end to learning. And we may actually end up surprising ourselves if we just allow ourselves to go with the flow of the venture that we want to. Another
yes,
important point that I take away from this conversation, Ekta, is that success and failure comes later. I think what's
yeah,
important is that we need to first allow ourselves to get into something which allows us to explore our hidden talents, and then the possibility of monetization can be created through those talents which we have not yet explored. Thank you so much for sharing those wonderful inputs, Ekta. And are there any parting words, closing words that you would like to say?
Thank you so much, Navita, and thank you, Unakriti, for giving me an opportunity to be here today. It's not many times that we get to talk about our own experiences and our journey. And Unakriti is doing a fabulous job. I think what you guys are doing is absolutely the need of the hour with these stressful times. The offerings that you have in terms of coaching, therapy, and web development is a comprehensive package. And I really appreciate all the efforts you are putting to reach out to people and to connect and do these sessions for not just women but anybody. And I think this would be a great helping hand in stressful times, especially now when we are all stuck in this pandemic. So thank you so much and all the best to you.
Thank you for those kind words. And thank you so much for sharing those wonderful inputs, Ekta. And if somebody wants to get in touch with you or know more about Studio Bodhi, what's the best way that you suggest?
So, Studio Bodhi is on Instagram and we are on Facebook. And we also have very, very recently started a small YouTube channel. Again, the idea of the channel is to be able to share my art experiences, small tutorials, and videos. So, I'm available on all these three. On Facebook, it's under the name Studio Bodhi Art, joined together, no space. And on Instagram, it's Studio Bodhi. And the YouTube link you could share on your channel. And anybody who wants to reach me can either email me or message me on any of these forums, and I'll be happy to connect with people who are genuinely interested in either knowing about the businesses or about my art.
I'm sure there would be curiosity for people to find out more. Ekta's contact details are shared in the description of this very video, and all the handles that she has just mentioned are there. So you could reach out to her via those or write to her via the email ID that's been given. And stay tuned, subscribe at Unakriti if you have not subscribed so far, because like Ekta, you will continue to meet fabulous people who are exploring their multiple potentials, continuing to surprise themselves, and creating amazing monetizing opportunities for them. Thank you all for tuning in, and don't forget to continue to tap your avatars. See you very soon.